Hi, this is Terry. I'm going to do a reading, and I'm going to bring you back to the 1980s when I was uh, raising a new baby and a crow, and lots of things like Mount St. Helens Blue. A lot of big events in my life happened. And another event I'd like to talk about is I met my dad. So I'm going to read this. It's called Reunion. My baby sister wrote a letter to him in care of his sister, our Aunt Martha. She forwarded the letter, and it happened to arrive on his birthday. Life coincidences are God's way of remaining anonymous. He told me later he couldn't believe his birthday letter. He was choked up and wrote his sister back. Well, baby sister called me and said she was coming to Seattle to see Dad, and could we let her and her sister stay over? He wrote her back, and she got his address. Sure. When are you coming? A couple of weeks. Sure. Where are we meeting him? I have his address, she answered. Huh? Does he know you're coming here? She replied, I am surprising him. Don't you think it's better in case he's not here? You come all this way and will not get to see him? She answered quietly, he may say no. I thought about that. She said, why don't you go see him? He left us when I was 12, and I thought, she may be right. I said, okay, let's do it together. They drove from Minnesota through two mountain ranges, the Rockies and the Cascades. My middle sister and the Iranian husband and my baby sister. They made record time. My baby sister drove all night. Apparently, she woke up on the side of the road by a police rapping on her window. She told me she has no memory of pulling over. More proof we have spiritual beings, like angels watching over us. My sister's husband took the car to stay with friends in Seattle at the university. He told my sister to call him when they planned to drive back home. Well, I was relieved. I wasn't that comfortable around him, and we had no room in our little airport two-bedroom house. Three sisters left Daddy and Baby to go check out our dad's place. I had my hesitations. Why did he never contact us? His sister was in contact with my mom. She sent her a Christmas card every year. I haven't thought much about him over the years. I did daydream that he'd show up wealthy, and everyone from our small town and my relatives who were better off were impressed seeing us in our new clothes, big shiny new car, and beautiful home. Silly dreams. Well, that never happened. I was hoping he wasn't derelict, homeless, and in bad health. At the same time, I was caught up in the excitement of going on a big adventure. I hoped he would be happily surprised. Needless to say, I was filled with trepidation. Visiting with my sisters and showing them beautiful Seattle was so much fun. He lived by the Pikes Market in downtown Seattle. He was lucky enough to land an apartment, as my dad put it later, in the Nuns' new affordable housing complex for people with low income. We walked off the busy Seattle downtown street into a much quieter courtyard space surrounded by studio apartments. A garden with vegetables and flowers was in the middle. Dad planted potatoes in there. I suspect they may have been William's quarantined potatoes from his hometown. We talked to someone there, and they told us he goes to this pub after work. It should be soon, they think. They were excited for seeing us girls. Well, we walked into this dive bar, and a bunch of older men were sitting there drinking. We asked the bartender if he knew Albert Leslie Deardow. Don't know him. We said the people had his, sorry, I have a frog in my throat. Boy. We said, let me get a drink of water. I'm so sorry. Sinuses. We said the people at his apartment building says he comes here after work. Another man emerged from the smoke and remarked, could that be Les the painter? We got excited. Yes. The man pointed across the street and said, well, here he comes now. I was floored. What incredible timing. We could not have planned it better. In hindsight, I think spiritual forces were guiding us. He looked just like I remembered him. Skinny, crew-cut hair in a fishing cap with which grade, walking with his daddy long legs towards us, and lunch bucket in his hand. As he got closer, I yelled out, hi, Dad. He was just reaching the door of the bar, looked up at us. He was shocked and took a moment to take it in, including his breath. Teet, he cried out with a, good golly gee, well, I'll be, what the heck are you doing here? How in the tarnation did you find me? How long have you been here? Good golly gee. Dang it. His dad lingo took over, substituting goofy words for four-letter ones. The shock was wearing off. He remembered me. Come in, and I'll buy you a pop. Oh, by golly, are you Cindy Durrett? He got a kick out of seeing us. He introduced us to his friends. When we had to get back home, I gave him my contact number. He said he will make arrangements to meet with us later. In hindsight, I wear crutches, and I'm sure it tipped him off. I was happy. Memories flooded me. I remember he told us funny stories about the spiders in our basement where the bathroom was. He called them Daddy Longlegs, like his. Because of this, I do not fear spiders. He invited us out to dinner on him. He worked a stint as a dishwasher at a fancy restaurant at a yacht club. He rigged it with the owner that he would pay him back later. We did not know that at the time. It was a great time eating on the water with the boats in a fancy restaurant. He was dressed in a borrowed white suit. He looked great. He paid the bill for all of us. Dad built relationships with people. He survived very well. He had skills like painting houses, picking apples, fishing. He made wooden toys out of wooden crates they threw out at the Pike's Market. He made toys that he was able to sell in their space and make extra money. He carved a good life for himself. He also sent his grandkids, including my kids, the toys he made. I loved his logging truck with the long bed and logs. He also sent holly that he picked in our very cold winter. The holly would often be DOA and brown. In warmer years, the fresh holly was so green with red berries. I was careful to sprig our house away from the kitty. It is poisonous. He refused his Social Security. He figured if he gets sick, he'll end up in the Medicaid hospital. He eventually got VA benefits. He may be right. When he became sick with liver cancer, he had the nurses and a doctor come to his place. He rigged it and received top-notch care. He did have to talk to the VA into it, though. I have good and embarrassing memories. He came to Sister Kenny and brought me to the beach at Lake Phelan. I loved it. He plopped me in the water, and remember afterwards when he brought me back, the people at the hospital were very unhappy. Polio quarantined me for a year at the hospital. Had no visitors. I could not see family and my sisters, and I missed so much. I think Dad thought it was too cruel. The year was almost up, but rules are there to protect people. In hindsight, I cringe at a seemingly loving gesture. but very irresponsible action. I digress. Another memory was Dad came on my fourth grade field trip. At one point, he got off the bus with a boy in my class. I was so embarrassed. They stayed out a long time, and finally they came back in. Then my dad asked the bus driver to drop him off somewhere. I found out later the boy was nauseous, and my dad talked to him until he felt better. Funny how a child sees their parents as an appendage of them. Although he didn't have to get off at my bus early. Would have been nice to hang. But I'm going to stop here. And that's kind of a memory of the 1980s when here I thought my dad may have been dead or homeless. He was so upset when my mother told him to leave that he just kept going. He said he just kept going, and he was combining his way and finding jobs until he couldn't go anymore. And he ended up in Seattle at the ocean, the Seattle Sound. And he did love my mother a lot, so it just devastated him. So I just thought I'd tell this little story. Eventually, I had a memorial for my dad, and he wanted me to bring his ashes I will write this story later. He wanted me to bring his ashes to his hometown that I grew up in my early years. And so we got to have a memorial for him. So I'll write about that story later. And thank you very much. Bye-bye.